So you may have noticed there are a lot more voters than philosophers out there. You may have had a situation where maybe you explain to someone how you've studied economics or political science or something, and then they just glaze over and they tell you that they don't know anything about the topic and they're not particularly interested in it and therefore can't really contribute to the conversation. But then when the issue of politics comes up, all of a sudden they become very passionate about it, and they'll be emboldened and might even shame you for not agreeing with them, despite the fact that you just explained to them that you've done your due diligence and you've researched it and come to your conclusion very carefully, and they just admitted to you that they have not done the same. But it's even worse than that. If we lived in a society of independent thinkers, you might expect a situation where someone will research one political topic and come to one conclusion on it, and then when they get to another topic, they come to this other conclusion, and maybe the third topic, they'll look at it and admit they don't know because they couldn't find enough information, whatever, so on down the line. There's so many permutations of the totality of political positions that it's possible for everyone. There's plenty of room for everyone to be their own unique snowflake on this. And of course, I encourage you to think about the issues independently in this way. But we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that political positions tend to be highly correlated. That is, if you think about one political issue and come to one particular conclusion about it, then on the next political issue, you tend to come to another specific conclusion about it. Right? So my favorite example in this is the issues of climate change and mass third world immigration. Now, this is not a video about either of those subjects, but I will say that these two issues are largely unrelated, but if anything, mass immigration contributes to climate change. And the only reason I bring this up is that people's political positions tend to correlate in the opposite direction. That is, that the group of people who believe that climate change is a major issue plaguing humanity right now tend not to think that mass immigration is a major issue. Meanwhile, the other substantial group of people who tend not to think that climate change is a major issue are the ones who think that mass immigration is a major issue, right? It's the opposite of the objective nature of the issues. So what's guiding political positions is not so much even the issues themselves so much as it is some underlying psychology. There's some other driving force that's leading to these sets of conclusions, right? And these are two major tribes that are highly correlated, right? So you have a situation where, you know, on every single issue you have the same two tribes going at it. It's not that you end up with the population split on this issue and then you shuffle the deck and have a completely different, set of two groups disagreeing on another issue. It's the same groups disagreeing all the way down. And so what this is an indication of is that people are operating with competing sets of underlying axioms. This is the best way to explain how this grouping happens. That one group of people is operating under one set of axioms that's driving their positions on all the issues, and then the other group has a different set of axioms that's driving their positions on the issues as well. And so what this indicates, this might give some insight as to why many political discussions are unproductive, because they may not actually even be going where the disagreement actually lies, right? Because, if you see two people that disagree on a political issue, it may not be so much that they disagree on the issue, it's that they're reasoning from a different set of axioms, right? So if you're able to reason from the other set of axioms, you might say, well, actually under that set of assumptions, I do get your conclusion, but under mine, right? So the point is that the disagreement may actually be down here in the axioms rather than up here in the actual issue, right? So that might explain why a lot of political disagreement or political discussions are ultimately unproductive. That's not the totality of why they're unproductive, but I think that might be one of the reasons. Unfortunately, these sets of axioms, they're hard to articulate because you can't see your own lens, right? If you're looking at the world through one particular lens, then the hardest thing for you to see is the lens, because in order to really see it, you'd have to compare it to how you see the world when you're not looking at the world through that lens, right? Then you just compare the difference, right? In fact, you can't even really see the other lens, right? Because you're going to see that other lens through your lens. So the hardest thing to see is your lens. And so there's another tragedy here, is that the actual disagreement may be in the axioms, but the axioms are in a lens, and that's precisely the hardest thing to see, right? So I can try to be helpful, I guess, in trying to crack this code, basically with the clues that I've assembled so far in this video, right? That these lenses, if they drive all of our political positions, and yet they are largely unarticulated, and also people tend to get very emotional about it, these are all indications that that political lens is effectively an instinct, right? There's something deeply implanted in your psychology. There's an instinct at a Darwinian level that is driving all of your political thought, right? That's likely what's going on. And I like this explanation a lot better than what you'll often hear. Like, you'll hear somebody say something like, oh, well, if Karl Marx hadn't, written the books he wrote, then we wouldn't have so many Bernie Sanders supporters right now. And I don't think that's accurate, because I kind of doubt that a lot of Bernie supporters have actually read Karl Marx. And I don't think that it's not so much an intellectual thing for him, right? You can see it. It's an emotional thing for him. So what I think is actually going on is that there is this fundamental psychology, this common instinct that both groups have, or that Marx had and Bernie and all the other people, that there's this common instinct that they're operating from, and it leads to similar conclusions. And so maybe, the most influential writers and philosophers, economists, whatever, that come from that thinking, maybe they popularize it and give it the momentum that it needs to succeed. But ultimately, the driving force is that instinct. And so if this or that particular writer hadn't existed, the movement probably still would have manifested in some other way. So I think that's what's going on, is that we're looking at competing sets of instincts that are driving political thought. And I was going to try to put all this in one video, but I think I will split it into two. So I hope that got you thinking about some things, despite the fact that I still have not really been specific about anything, in my opinion. But if you do think that my analysis has some potential, I'm going to definitely delve into this further. So if you think it has potential, give it the usual interactions. Let me know what you think about it, and share it around, and we'll see how it goes.